Hey everyone, I know I promised these like Friday evening and it's Saturday afternoonish. But just like you guys, life happens to me, and so here I am doing it. Um, if this is some of the stuff you don't totally remember, I'm gonna go find some other slope videos, and I'll just put them in the description. I'll put a link to them in the description. So check down below. I don't really know how to get all super fancy and say, hey, there should be a box right here, and click that box, and it'll take you. I don't know how to do that yet. I'm sure I could eventually figure it out. But we're gonna just do it that way. So I'll put some stuff in the description. Again, if you need some help, email me or email whichever teacher you have. So yeah. So we started talking about slope, and I will say, let me go back. You're gonna have to ignore this right here, this limited mode thing, because I'm not currently plugged into my smart board or a smart device of some sort. So we talked slope, and we said slope was rise over run. I had someone say, if you have 2 points, it's kind of the angle you go from one point to another. I'm like, that's totally right. And then we talked about the slope formula, and you guys remembered it was y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. But it didn't matter which one was y1 and y2 and x, or whichever one, it didn't really matter. Um, so basically, as long as this is an xy point and this is the other xy point, and you didn't crisscross them at all, then it really doesn't matter which one goes where. So like if I have these 2 points here, -4, 10 is on top of each other, and -7, -13 is on top of each other. Now also notice I did not circle the subtraction sign. So the subtraction sign is always there. So if you have negative numbers, just put them in parentheses. It'll be a lot easier that way. Just don't, let's see if I can drag this over here. Don't crisscross them at all. But when you do minus a negative, you're really just adding. Get these out of the way just for a moment. So 10 plus 13 and -4 plus 7. So I'm sorry. So I was saying where these kind of blue negatives came from. If these would have been switched and you had -13 in front and -7 in front, you would have gotten -13 minus 10, and -7 ends up being +4. You'd get negative divided by negative, which ends up being a positive anyway, so it didn't really matter. Which way you do it, you'll get the same answer. It's not that crazy. All right, so um, let me kind of move some of this stuff out of the way. We have this line right here, and we got a dot there and a dot there. And what's the slope between the two dots? Well, I said, how do we know? Because we have a tough time trying to figure it out. We said, how do we know if something's even a function, that we can even write it as mx plus b, y equals mx plus b? We talked about the vertical line test. And if you drag a vertical line across a line, you should only be able to touch one point at a time. Well, this obviously violates that. So that should tell you there's no way for us to have a slope at all. So it's an undefined slope. It's not even a function, so it can't have a slope. If we did the slope formula, or if we kind of did rise over run and we mark these 2 points, the rise would be, let's go up 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Actually, it should be 5. I can't count apparently. And that should be a 3. Whoops. But I didn't run at all. I have this as my rise over run, and I can't divide by 0. It's one of those mathematical things that just can't happen. And now that I'm looking at it, I should change both of those while I'm talking. So because it cannot mathematically happen, that's how we get undefined. So I said, well, what if I have a line like this, and I got, let's say, 2 points right there and there. I think that's the ones I used. Well, I don't have any kind of rise, so my rise is 0, but I can run 1, 2, 3, or run truthfully any number, but 0 divided by whatever is just 0. So looking at this, these are our two, wow. Sorry, I'm tired. These are our two special cases. Up and down line is x equals a number. A straight across line is just y equals a number. They won't have an additional x or y because on this one, y doesn't change, so it's just not part of the equation. Or x doesn't, I'm so sorry. X is totally constant, so that's why it's the only thing included. Y is totally constant. That's the only thing that matters. It's the only thing that's included. All these other ones are pretty simple. They give you two dots. You rise 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 up. That's why the 6 is on rise. And 1, 2, 3, 4 for my run. And it simplifies to 3 over 2. When we did this one, we did 1, 2, 3 down. And when you go down, that's how you get a negative. And my run was 1. Now, we could clearly see this is a negative slope. And I could have technically gone 1, 2, 3 up and 1 backwards. And that's what this one will look like. But whether the negative's on top, the negative's on bottom, negative's in front, because you're like, oh, I see that it's clearly that, so I'll just count 3 and 1. As long as you don't give me double negative, because double negative, again, is a positive. And I'm hoping you know the difference between a negative slope and a positive slope. This is just slope formula stuff. Take your x, y, plug it in and do some calculations. Again, we'll have calculators soon, and it'll be really easy. We can just punch that whole thing in and hit enter, and it'll spit out our final answer. But until then, plug in and solve. -3 plus 20, because you minus negative, and -3 minus 4. We got 17 over -17, which makes -1. When we did this one, let me extend the page just a little bit. When we did this one, 19 minus 18 is 1, and -5 minus 8. I had a lot of people say 3 or something like that, or -3. Same signs, add and keep, so make sure you just count correctly. Now on these, it says find the slope of each line, and we talked about y equals mx plus b, and if you kind of go back to our formula, I don't even need this page, I don't even know what's there. It's m equals, slope is m, so we just got to go, well, if it's in y equals mx plus b, what's sitting in the m spot? Let's do this. What's sitting right there? Well, in this case, it's 7 over 4. In this case, it's -9. Those are easy. Find the slope of a parallel line. Well, we talked in class how parallel lines have the same slope. So if this slope has this line has a slope of 1/4, whatever other line we want to use has the same slope. Same thing here. Perpendicular, and I changed these examples because it gave me some stupid ones. Perpendicular, opposite reciprocal is technically the term, but you just flip and change the sign. So I said this was 2x plus 1 because the one that I had was dumb. So 2 over 1 flips to 1 over 2, and positive 1 over 2 becomes negative 1 over 2, and that's how you get your new value for, if I can get my pen, M. This one's currently -1 over 1, so it switches to positive 1 over 1. Or it flips to 1 over -1 and then changes the sign, but it's just 1. So like I did this one. I said, look, we're here at y equals 3/4 x minus 10. 3/4 flips to 4/3, positive becomes negative. I could probably get rid of that. Okay, so how are we doing on time? Okay, let me wrap this up. We are looking for the number, spoiler alert, it's 6, that ends up going there. Well, we don't know what it is yet. They gave us a variable. Okay, so we set it up in the slope formula, y minus y over x minus x. And then if we have fraction equals fraction, we set them up by cross multiplying. And then all of a sudden, we just have an equation that needs to be solved. And we can literally do them in all of these. Just make sure, like on this one, this is -x. So if you come down here and you forget this negative, and you say x equals -6, it's not technically right. Be careful on your special cases where your slope is 0 or your slope is undefined. That means it's either y equals a number or x equals a number. We did this one down here. Again, just set it up. You have a variable left over. That's okay. Cross multiply, set them up this way, distribute, combine like terms, solve for your last variable, and you should get it. So like I said, I'm going to find a couple more videos to help you with this, but hopefully this helps.